everyone, this is Danielle, also known as Gently Smiling Jaws, and welcome to my Flosstube for April of 2026. I am continuing along with my track record this year of not necessarily working on a bunch of projects, and I haven't necessarily done a ton of stitching this month, but I did finish something, which we will get to. What I am drinking today, as far as my tea, is I've got it's some tea I brewed earlier, so it is cold now at this point, but because of how I was brewing it, I do have, you can see the tea here, although I'm drinking it out of this cup here. And this tea is from, it's a sample from White 2 Tea. It is a 2023 Gold Foo, and I'm gonna see if I can hold this up so that you can see inside the bag, because this is the type of tea I don't drink very often, and this was certainly one where the whole brick of it was expensive enough. There we go. You can see, so the Gold Food, this is a tea that has something called golden flowers in it. So if you see stuff in there on the edges of the bag where it almost looks like there's pollen in there, those are the golden flowers. But this tea was expensive enough where I wasn't going to invest in a whole brick. I picked up a couple samples because this is something that I don't drink all that often, and I don't drink enough to be kind of super familiar with it. I feel like there was another type of tea with golden flowers that I had some time ago where I felt like that tea kind of had a sweeter taste to it. This one maybe not so much, but again, I haven't drank a ton of it, so the tea where my knowledge on it is not as much. I also know that if you are celiac or are sensitive to gluten, it's recommended that you don't have this type of tea, because however they encourage the golden flowers to grow on the tea, I've heard that sometimes it's like some kind of like an inoculation with something where it may contain some wheat in there, and so that's the reason why they tell people who are sensitive to gluten or have celiac to not drink this tea, because you could possibly have some reaction to it. That's not a concern for me, but I also said not a tea I am super familiar with, but I drink most any kinds of tea, so that's what I am drinking today. And this one, well, it's not fair to say this because I had this steeping for a very long time. There is a bit of a bitter flavor to it, but I don't even know how long I had the tea steeping in the leaves, so that could definitely be a brewing issue on my end. The other tea, I haven't been posting on Instagram much, but I had posted the other day a tea that I was drinking that was also from White 2 Tea, but it was one of the, I have an old wrapper here, but it was a little ball of tea that came in a wrapper like this, although it was not this tea. And that was one, I think it was a chaud puer, a ripe puer called Stub, that had been smoked. And I like smoked teas. I haven't drank any for a while because that hasn't been kind of what I wanted, but I was looking through my stash of tea for a completely different tea, and I was going through opening up bags that had the little tea balls in them, and I came across the ones that I had for this tea called Stub, and I opened it up and I caught a whiff of the tea, and I was like, this is what I want to drink today. So I stopped my search for the other tea and drank that tea. And although I don't drink smoked teas all the time, I drink them enough that I do have a little teapot that I only use for teas that are smoked, because it's a clay teapot, and I know it's going to absorb some bit of the flavor of those teas. So that pot is only for smoked teas, and I drank that, and it was quite good. And it's one of those teas where even though a lot of the teas that I drink, you can just steep them and steep them and steep them over and over. And you know, I was doing that, and you know, it got to the point where it was still, so I was steeping it over and over, and it got to the point where I was still getting some flavor out of the tea, but the bulk of the flavor had gone at that point. And I was like, oh, I'm a little sad. But I said I have plenty more smoked tea around, and now and then that's just what I want. Opening up a bag and taking a whiff. And although I'm a vegetarian, but these smoked teas is sort of like the beef jerky of teas, and just now and then that's what I want. And that was delicious. But today it's this golden foo tea, and then I'm not sure what I'll be on to next. So that is what I am currently drinking. And now on to stitching. I think I will start with this one. I only have 2 to show, but this is what we're going to start with. This is Perky Lion from Marumi Designs. And I think I put in about 600 stitches this month. I think I have a bit over 1,000 left to go. Getting more of the body done here. And this is one where I had, my last video, I mentioned I had, you know, planned to pick it up next, and I hadn't gotten to it yet. So this is what I had worked on next after I did my last video, and then I was sidetracked by the other project that I will show, and then I came back and stitched a bit more on this last night. And I haven't yet decided whether I should just push through and finish this, because there's really not all that much left before moving on to something else. And I'm you know, although I know that there's I'm not going to be able to knock out a ton of whips off my list, because some of them are bigger, but this one is small enough where I could certainly you know, get it done. So maybe I will continue working on this until the finish, maybe not, I don't know. As I've mentioned before, this is fabric from Banana Oil, which I think is gorgeous. When I saw this, I don't know if I had decided at the time of purchase or after I got it home. I know it didn't take me too long to figure out what I was going to use this for. And I will show again that this is one where I'm stitching on it with Mo's Sail Silk. What I'm using for Perky Lion is, I believe, Mustard is the name of it. But there are 2 other colors, and I want to stitch more than just Perky Lion on this piece of fabric. I want to do some other ones of Miriam's designs. And I have also in Mo's Sail Silk Pear and Plum, and so I want to use those 2 colors and add in. I want to stitch kind of the patterns that I'm doing, each pattern being monochrome, just using, you know, 1 color, but I want to use a couple different colors on this piece. So that's where Perky Lion is at. And I've got a number of Miriam's designs in progress as well. In fact, I made a list. I know when I did my my whip parade, I was counting like how many whips I had from various designers, and I don't know if I made a note in here. If it's not in here, it was on it was in the description of my whip parade. But let's see here. So my whips, at the beginning of the year, I had 35. And let's see, counting the one I finished this week, I've knocked off 1, 2, 3. I've knocked 4 off my list for the year, so I'm now down to 31. But let me glance at the list here. Got 1, 2, 3, 4. I think Perky Lion is one of 4 of Miriam's designs that I am currently stitching. The others are Biwa Sampler, which I need to get back to. It's been a while since I've worked on that one. And then from Yalda to Nauru's, where I've just started on the border on the top, I haven't solidified what color I'm doing for each of those bands. And I do want to say that's one where I'm kind of sort of trying to stitch on each of my whips this year. That one, I imagine that, you know, as long as I get to it, I will probably make some more progress on the border, but that one's not on my list to be finishing anytime soon because I've just started it. Although I haven't, you know, touched it in a while. Mellow the Phoenix is one where I know I still have a bit on that one. I mean, it's not a huge pattern, but I know I've made a chunk of progress into the pattern overall, but I, you know, still have a ways to go on that. And then the lion. So that's what I've got on there. I said, so I put in about 600 stitches on that one this month. And let me grab my little card here. It's in the banana oil fabric is an 18 count Aida. And although I'm not a huge Aida stitcher, I have to say that the banana oil, well, I just love banana oils fabrics overall, and I think that the, you know, their Aida is certainly a fun one to stitch on. Okay, my next one, which I will show here in a moment, and it's going to be clear what pattern this is, but I'm also not going to super promote which pattern this is. As talked about in my last video, there was a pattern I was working on where the company has recently been using generative AI in their social media posts. As far as I know, they haven't used that in the patterns themselves. I think they're still, you know, all that is all, you know, human done, but it's been showing up more on their, you know, social media. When people had made comments about it, the comments had been, you know, like deleted, and in some cases the comments overall turned off. I think that the AI has been used in some of their other, you know, items that they sell, non-pattern items, but like designs for fabric. And also in this particular pattern that I was working on, as I was looking at the PDF of the pattern, there's some artwork on the pattern that I'm sort of questioning if that was generated as well, but I don't know. And I think why it, you know, and I suppose, you know, this is different than having somebody who is just churning out the patterns themselves, you know, with AI, but still it bothers me, particularly because when you have a company who has been around and has been, you know, kind of a pretty respected company, and they're obviously putting a lot of time and effort into, you know, both this particular pattern was an original pattern, but they do a lot of reproductions. And, you know, with all that time and effort put in, I'm just so puzzled as to why, when you know, when you are like an artist and you're recreating the work of people who did all this handwork in the past, and you're putting the time in so that people today can put in all their time and create something by hand, why you're then okay with just generating these AI images which in, in the examples with this company, there had been, where there was text, there was like misspellings and things just look weird. And I don't know, it's so puzzling to me, and disappointing. And I mean, I suppose once you have the technology, I mean, AI of various types, including the generative AI, is here. I don't imagine that it's going away, but I hope that how it is used and the rules around it can evolve. I'm hoping that, we get out a few years and there's kind of more rules and stuff in place, and that we find ways where the technology is useful, but we're not stealing from artists or harming the environment with how much power, AI uses. There's just, I have lots of concerns, and it was just so disappointing to see this. And I know that this company certainly isn't the only one, and isn't probably isn't the biggest offender either. I mean, for people who are just creating, patterns wholesale, that are AI slop. But I was irritated enough, and this pattern was big enough that I knew I didn't want to put in the time to finish it, because I was irritated. And when I talked in my last video, I thought, well, with how far I am, I'm okay with just abandoning the project. After making that video, and I had also mentioned that another person on Instagram, I think it was Books and the Moon. I'll put it in again in the description. I mentioned in my last video as well, where she was asking people kind of what they do when they're, when they have a whip, and then, you're working on something where you find something out, you realize that, values don't align, or something where it makes you, where if you had known back when you got the pattern and started the whip, where you probably wouldn't have started it, but it's already in progress. What do you do at that point? Do you just abandon it? Do you finish it but not talk about it? What do you do? And people had various takes on that. And when I made my video, I thought, well, I'll just abandon this project. And then as I was looking at other stuff and thinking more, I thought, well, I looked at what I had done, which was I had a good chunk of kind of I had a kind of an upper left start of the pattern was what I was working on. And I looked at what I had done. I'm like, well, I have enough of this border. The border was really kind of what had drawn me to the pattern in the first place. I'm like, well, with what I have, done already, it's not going to take much for me to kind of finish this border, and I could, instead of doing the rest of the pattern, I can just do the border, and then I can put some text in here and make it sort of an anti-AI message. And so I get the part of the pattern that I want, I get a message in there that I want, and then I'm done. So as I proceeded along, if I had realized exactly how much I had to do, because once I figured out what text I was going to put in there, then I realized I should extend part of the border more in order to get it to look the way I wanted. And by the time, I realized that I was far enough along where I'm like, I'm this far now, I might as well just keep going. So I put in more work into this than I intended. But now I'm calling it done, and it's off my, whip list, and I'm happy about that. So let's grab this. And I know that in the past people got bent out of shape when I was, swearing, and so there's swearing in this. So if that's not your cup of tea, move on to something else. So this is my finish of the pattern that I was working on. I think the area that this takes up is like 150 by 150 because of how I had this. So I've got, let me hold this here. This piece of fabric is big because I thought this was going to be 4 times the size when it was done. I had this order going up here and then partially across here, and I didn't have all the flowers done, but I had, you know, a good chunk of things done. So I thought, okay, I can just add some text and then, you know, kind of be done. So once I got more of the border done, got the text in, I then extended that out to kind of balance that, and then I took some designs from elsewhere in the pattern and stuck them down at the bottom because it went with this. So let me read off to you what my little poem on here is, which is, you know, not the most brilliant thing in the world, but it didn't take me very long to come up with this either. So it's called Doff Your Hats. You said to multiply kindness, but used generative AI. Unfortunate for you, you see, 'cause numbers do not lie. 0 fucks given for artists, 0 fucks for the environment too, and anything times 0 only gives 0 back to you. Because the centerpiece of this design was a multiplication table, which obviously I have finished doing none of. So that was sort of my way of just getting my feelings out about this, finishing this up, and just being done with it. So I moved the other hats or crowns that were in the pattern and moved them down to the bottom just to fill up space. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings, and obviously me doing this isn't telling you what to do with your patterns. You know, stitch what you want to stitch. I'm not here to police what you're doing. This is just how I'm dealing with my feelings about this. And you know, I don't know. I am obviously not the target audience of this company's patterns, because the majority of them are things where, although I find some of them interesting, they're not what I want to spend my time stitching, particularly when a lot of them have religious verses, because they're old samplers. And if I was going to stitch them, I would need to change out the text, and sometimes I just don't want to go through that process of figuring out what I'm going to do. So me not purchasing more of this company's patterns is not going to hurt them in any way, because I wouldn't be buying a bunch of their patterns to begin with. I think when I bought this pattern, I bought 2 others. One of the others, you know, I was looking forward to stitching at some point. I don't know if I will ever stitch that. I mean, maybe, I don't know who exactly is running the social media for the company. I don't know whose decision it was to be using the AI. Maybe they'll change their ways, and down in the future I'll feel okay about, stitching one of the other patterns that I have, but, maybe not. So this is just how I worked through this this whip that I already had started, and figuring out what I was going to do with it. Am I a little sad that I'm not doing the whole thing? Yes and no, because I would have liked to have done the whole thing, but in other ways it's like, well, I knocked a whip off my list, so there's some feeling of accomplishment in that, even though the finished product is not what I originally thought it was going to be. So yeah, that was just how I finished this one. And I should say, I guess now I have a lot of SWA 103 that I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do with, or how to incorporate into other patterns. The colors that I used in this are not exactly the called for, because as I was working on this, I didn't have all of the SWA 103 that I needed. Where I had ordered from, some of them, had, colors that weren't in stock. So I think in one case, I ordered a color that was like 1 number off, where I figured it would be close enough. It was like a yellow, and I don't remember the number, but I grabbed it was like a maybe a 147 was called for and I got 148 because that's what I could get when I was placing my order. And then I was going to, just start with what I had and then, order the couple of colors that I still needed later on. But once I decided I was going to, do this edited down version, there was no way I was ordering more just to finish this. So I just, there was a color or two where I didn't have it and I just grabbed from the colors that I had and substituted, stuff in. So, it doesn't exactly match, but I don't care. The text that I use, the font, I have WinStitch, and this was kind of one of the fonts that came with it, and I think it was called Lyre, Lyre. It was just one of the ones that was in there, and so I just used that font and just sort of figured out how I wanted to do this, and then just sort of made it fit in there. So I think it looks okay with how I got stuff fit in there. I don't know whether I'm going to go to the trouble of putting this in a frame or putting this up, because I don't know. On one hand, I like that I have the message on there. On the other hand, I'm not 100% sure whether I want to display it or not. But it's probably not too much of an issue because I have a number of things that I should have already framed by now and I haven't. So the chances of me getting to this anytime soon are very, very low. So those are the massive 2 projects that I've worked on, and I didn't calculate up the number of stitches that I put in to finishing up that pattern, but it was probably a couple thousand, not counting however many stitches the back stitching on the text was. But I don't know, if I had known that was how much I had to put in to finish it, I don't know that I would have done it if I realized how much effort it was going to take. But it's done now. It's off my list. Let's see. What else? Looking at the whips that I have on my list here. I think it would be good if I kind of moved ahead and tried to finish up Perky Lion. But there's also other stuff I want to work on with maybe next month, and it's my birthday month. I don't think I'm going to do a birthday start. I didn't do one last year. I don't think I even stitched on my birthday. In 2024, I had started Carolyn Manning's birthday cake pattern on my birthday, and I haven't stitched much of that, and I didn't work on it at all last year, but maybe May is the time to pull that out and at least get a little bit more in and touch that whip for the year. There are other things where I don't have a ton to do to finish them. I keep talking about getting my temperature chart back out and just filling in the rest of the temperatures from last year, which I had planned to do earlier in the year, and that didn't happen. I'm still not feeling the pull to do it just yet, but I do want to do that, yet this year. What else has Spirits of the Dead is one, by Modern Folk Embroidery is one that I should pull back out again, because I think the main thing I have to do on that is I'm in the midst of the text near the bottom of the pattern. I know there's a bottom border that has a lot of stitching. I think that's where it has Edgar Allan Poe's name and the date. And there's a lot of stitching. So it's text and border stuff at the bottom. And I know, and I don't know kind of stitch count wise what I'm looking at, but that's one I keep meaning to pull back out and just be done with. Don't know if that's going to happen soon, but in similar things, Reflections on a Grecian Urn is another one that I keep thinking about pulling out and working on, and those two are my second and third oldest whips that were both started in 2023. And I don't know if I will get either of those finished, but I would at least like to get a chunk done on both of them. And those are also ones that are done on 32 count linen, which is a count that I don't stitch on as much anymore. And so I'd kind of like to get, you know, dents made in those, even if I don't finish them this year. What else? There's other, you know, plenty of other things on my list to work on, but those are kind of the ones that come to mind as far as ones that I keep thinking about pulling out and working on as I'm looking at this list. And there's also the Plants and Petrichor cell from Fine Frog Stitching that I started in August of 2024, and I had done a fairly good job of keeping up as the sections of the cell came out, and then I fell behind, and I know I don't have all that much left to do, and I keep thinking I just need to pull that one out and finish that off, because again, not too much to do. I just need to sit down and do it, and it's just finding the time when I am motivated to just tackle it and be done. Yeah, I've got a number of choices for things. And yeah, I think I like the idea of touching all these whips before the year is done, although I'm not like striving to accomplish that. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But I feel like I've made good progress. I mean, compared to how many finishes I normally have, I mean, this year I finished Jill Bakken by Modern Folk Embroidery, All Treats No Tricks by the Witchy Stitcher, which is one that I had sitting around I had started in August of 2023 and finished it up in February of this year. Freedom Motif Sampler I finished. I'm really happy with how that one turned out. And then the one that I just finished. And so far I haven't had any starts this year other than my restart of the Alice in Wonderland, which I haven't touched since I restarted it in February. And I do want to get back to that. I mean, I have just the start is little, but I'm so much happier, I think, with how the restart is, because having it on the smaller count, having the pattern in a format that's going to work better for me, I'm feeling, even though my start is minuscule, I'm just feeling much better in general about that whip. And yeah, I'm kind of feeling like Birthday Cake should be pulled back out again, because I like working on Carolyn Madding's patterns. I do have one other one that I'm working on, the Chameleon one, which is considerably smaller than Birthday Cake. But I feel like Birthday Cake is going to be appropriate for my birthday month. And Chameleon, it's not a huge square, but like most of Carolyn Manning's patterns, it's a square, and I have that pattern, although it's not fully done, what I have done is a square. And so it kind of feels okay if I don't touch that one right now, because although it's not done, it sort of looks done because it is a square. Birthday Cake is not that far, and you know, that's something where I should just, you know, I have been so I got out of, you know, by reading audiobook habit a while back. I was doing good for a while, and then I sort of got thrown off track, and I just haven't gotten back to doing it. But pulling out, you know, a Carolyn Manning pattern and doing an audio book would probably be a good thing, although more likely it will end up being pulling out that pattern and like, you know, watching a YouTube video or something like I normally do, or a Flosstube. And as I've mentioned before, the amount of Flosstube that I watch fluctuates, and I try very, very hard to not watch any Flosstube unless I am stitching myself, because then that's sort of my reward and motivation that here I'm going to, sit and cross stitch, and then I get to watch these Flosstube videos. And actually the one Flosstube that I watch most regularly is Sunshine Stitchers, and they have, a weekly schedule where, if they're not traveling, then it's pretty much out on a weekly basis. And so although I am not stitching a ton, that's sort of my one time a week where I am generally sure I will get something done during the course of the weekend, as I will, check on Saturday evening, is that video posted yet? And either on Saturday evening or sometime on Sunday, I will sit down and watch that video and at least get some cross stitching done. So when they have one of their really long videos, that's helpful to me, because that means I'm going to get more stitching done. Yeah. Looking time there, this is probably going to be a shorter video for me, because I've got my editing to do, and I didn't have a whole lot of stuff to talk about since I only worked on the 2 projects. And generally I will film my Flosstube like the weekend prior to the weekend it gets posted, just so I have time during the week to actually then sit down and go back through the video and edit it. I am recording this on Saturday, and I'm going to be posting this tomorrow, assuming I get everything edited and uploaded and all that, which is what I will be doing just as soon as I stop recording this video, because I'm cutting it a lot closer this time. I held off on filming because I was so close to having the one whip done, and I didn't finish. I had gotten stuff done. I needed to finish the crowns at the bottom, and I normally would have, recorded this on a Sunday and then posted it the next Sunday. But on that Sunday, I wasn't quite done with it yet, and then I think it wasn't until Monday or Tuesday that I finished it. And then the filming on a weekday after work is not necessarily at the top of my list of things to do. So I'm like, okay, well, if I hold off, maybe I can get a little bit more stitching done on Perky Lion, which I did do, although that wasn't until Friday night. And got a little more on that, and I'm glad, because I think that now that I've got sort of more of the lion's body on there, it's looking good, and it's kind of motivating to me to see it more take shape and know that I am not that far away from the end. So I will work to get this video edited and posted tomorrow, and then I will see you. Well, let me look when I will be doing this. Oh, and I guess the other thing I should say is that, how I had been putting the photos in here of my finishes in my Hobonichi weeks that I use for my kind of cross stitch tracking. I do not have the photo of my most recent finish in there, because my little printer that I use, since I only have one finish at the moment, and I want to print that one smaller, I am waiting until I have something else to print a picture of, so that I'm not using the whole piece of photo paper just for the one project. So I think kind of, waiting till I have a couple of things to print and then printing them on one sheet to conserve the paper. Let me look here on May, because May, well, okay, it looks like May 31st is on a Sunday, so I will, that's probably, well, I guess, I suppose, yeah, Memorial Day weekend will be the weekend before, so I will have some time there. I guess the thinking about scheduling, it's a ways off, but in September I will have to figure out what I am doing as far as videos, because during the time I would normally be filming and posting my Flosstube, I will be away, and then the weekend I would normally be posting is when the tea festival is going to be for this year. So I don't know whether I will film something ahead of time and have a shorter, video to still have something to go up in September, and then do another tea festival video later on. I don't know. That's a ways off. And the other thing that makes me happy is that it's not that many more weeks before I go back to my summer 4-day-a-week work schedule. And having that 3-day weekend, it's just the my mental health takes a huge jump up once I have those 3-day weekends. So maybe I'll get some more stitching done in the summer as I have that more time available. All right, that's enough rambling from me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in May. Bye.